Imagine a man so rich he gave away gold until it collapsed an entire economy. A king whose empire was larger than all of Western Europe and richer than Amazon, Apple, and Google combined. His name? Mansa Musa. But this isn't just a story about one man. It's the story of an African empire so powerful that Europe rewrote history to forget it. This is the story of Mali, the African empire richer than you've ever been told. When people think of pre-colonial Africa, they often picture tribes, huts, and struggle. But before the arrival of Europeans, Africa was home to vast kingdoms with bustling cities, trade networks, armies, and scholars. In West Africa, long before skyscrapers rose in New York or London, empires like Ghana, Songhai, and Mali flourished. And at the heart of it all? Gold. West Africa held some of the richest gold mines on Earth, and Mali controlled it all. Mansa Musa became emperor of Mali in 1312 AD after the death of his predecessor Abu Bakr II, a king who, according to legend, sailed west into the Atlantic with 2,000 ships in search of new lands. When Musa rose to power, Mali was already wealthy, but under his rule it became unimaginably rich. Mansa means king or sultan, and Musa wasn't just a ruler. He was a builder, a scholar, a devout Muslim, and a strategist. Under his rule, Mali's territory expanded across 2,000 miles, from the Atlantic Ocean in the west to what is now Niger in the east. He controlled nearly half the world's known gold supply. And unlike today's billionaires, Musa didn't keep it all for himself. He used it to build cities, schools, and mosques, and to change the course of world history. Estimates today say Mansa Musa would have been worth over $400 billion, more than Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos combined. But that's an understatement, because Musa's wealth wasn't digital or stock-based, it was material. He had gold in mountains. He owned cities, controlled entire trade routes, and taxed everything that moved across West Africa. In fact, gold was so abundant in Mali, it was used for decoration, trade, architecture, even everyday objects. But it was Musa's legendary pilgrimage to Mecca that would put his empire on the world map and trigger a global ripple effect. In 1324, Mansa Musa set out on his pilgrimage to Mecca, a religious journey every Muslim is encouraged to make at least once. But Musa didn't go alone. He brought a caravan of 60,000 people, soldiers, officials, slaves, musicians, and merchants. He rode with 80 camels, each carrying 100 to 300 pounds of gold. The caravan stretched as far as the eye could see. When he reached Cairo, Egypt, Musa began giving away gold generously to the poor, to merchants, to rulers. He spent so much that it caused massive inflation. The price of gold in Egypt and surrounding regions crashed and didn't recover for over a decade. Imagine a traveler arriving in your city and just by spending money, he disrupts your entire economy. That was Mansa Musa. Musa wasn't just building wealth, he was building civilization. On his way back to Mali, he stopped in Egypt and recruited scholars, architects, and artists. He brought them back to Mali to build the future. Cities like Timbuktu and Gao became centers of learning, trade, and culture. Musa built the famous Jingareber Mosque, which still stands today. The University of Sankore in Timbuktu attracted students from across Africa and the Middle East. It held hundreds of thousands of manuscripts on science, law, math, astronomy, and medicine. Mali became the intellectual capital of Africa, long before the European Renaissance. But even as Musa built a golden age, others were watching, and not all were impressed. Some were threatened. By the 14th century, European cartographers had begun to hear rumors of a black king who bathed in gold. In the 1375 Catalan Atlas, a mapmaker drew Musa sitting on a golden throne in the heart of Africa, crown on his head, gold nugget in his hand. For Europe, still recovering from famine and war, Musa was a legend, almost mythical. But legends also spark ambition. Over time, European kingdoms began looking south, toward Africa's riches. And within 150 years of Musa's death, colonizers would begin carving up the very lands that once rivaled their own. After Mansa Musa's death in 1337, the empire slowly began to decline. Internal struggles, weak successors, and external attacks from the Songhai Empire chipped away at its power. The glory of Mali would be absorbed and eventually forgotten. The manuscripts of Timbuktu were buried to protect them. The gold routes shifted, and colonial powers worked to erase Africa's royal past from history books. But Mansa Musa's legacy never fully disappeared. In Mali, Senegal, and Niger, griots still sing his story. His empire lives on in oral tradition, ancient maps, and dusty manuscripts waiting to be rediscovered. He proved that Africa was not poor. It was powerful, not primitive, but brilliant. And maybe that's why his story isn't told, but it's time we told it. Subscribe to Ancient Future, because Africa's past isn't gone, it was just hidden.